The silent warning, the outpost of Vera 9, floated on the edge of the galaxy. A lonely speck of metal and glass orbiting a dead moon. The station's scanners swept empty space every second, searching for pirates, smugglers, or stray asteroids. For years, nothing unusual appeared. The watch crews often grew lazy, whispering that nothing exciting ever happened in this sector. But on this night, everything changed. A young officer named Kellan sat at his console, capping the screen with tired fingers. His shift was almost over, and he was already thinking about the warm drink waiting for him in the mess hall. Then the console flickered red. The alarm whispered a warning. At first, he thought it was a glitch, so he smacked the side of the console. But the red glow grew stronger. Unidentified object detected. The computer spoke in a flat voice. Kellan frowned and leaned closer. The signal was faint at first, just a shadow at the edge of the system. But as he focused, the numbers grew. Clearer, it was large, too large. The scan line stretched across the screen until the outline filled the whole display. He felt his chest tighten. His claws dug into the console's surface. "Station command," he shouted. "We have something massive." Within minutes, the control room filled with officers and commanders. They stared at the display in silence. The scanners confirmed what none of them wanted to believe. A human warship had entered the sector. The words spread like fire. Each officer repeated them in fear. Each whisper made the air heavier. No one on Vera 9 had ever seen such a ship in real space. The archives spoke of them, yes, but only as legends, stories meant to scare children. Humans were not supposed to send warships this far into alien territory. The main display flickered again, and for the first time, the crew saw its shape. The warship drifted in the dark void, like a moving mountain. Its surface was jagged, armored with layers of black metal that reflected no starlight. Whole cities could have fit inside it. It was not sleek or elegant like alien designs. It was brutal, purposeful, built for war and nothing else. The ship's engines glowed faintly, but it was silent. It did not answer hails. It did not broadcast identification. It simply moved forward at a steady pace. The commander of the station, a veteran named Solvik, stood frozen. His voice cracked as he finally spoke. "Confirm it. Run the code again. Tell me this is a trick." But the computer repeated the words. With mechanical certainty. Object identified. Human warship. Class unknown. The crew panicked. Some begged to send warning signals to nearby fleets. Others argued they should power down and hide. A few even suggested launching escape pods. None of them wanted to be the first to face it. Solvik slammed his fist on the console. His voice shook the chamber. "Silence. We are the first eyes of the sector. We cannot run. We cannot hide. We will report and wait." Yet even as he said it, his tail lashed nervously. His eyes kept darting to the massive shadow on the screen. In the alien heart of every officer was the same thought. If one human warship had come, how many more followed behind it? The message was sent across the system. Alert issued. Human warship detected. Within hours, every nearby world knew. Merchants stopped their ships. Colonists locked themselves in shelters. And fleets scrambled to arm their weapons. The fear was not only of what the warship might do, but of why it was here. On Vera 9, Kellan sat shaking at his console. He kept staring at the blinking red dot that marked the human vessel. The dot grew closer with every passing minute. Each pulse of the scanner was like a heartbeat echoing in the silence. He whispered softly, as if the ship could hear him across the void. "Why are you here?" But no answer came, only the steady march of the human warship as it entered deeper into the sector. The outpost crew could do nothing. They were ants watching the storm cloud. They knew that the galaxy was about to change, and all they could do was wait for what came next. Panic across the stars. The warning from Vera 9 spread faster than light through the relays. Within hours, the words reached every system of the sector. The message was short. but it carried fear that no translation could soften. Alert? Human warship detected. Sector entry confirmed. In the capital world of Drelvos. The council hall trembled with voices. Alien leaders shouted over one another. Some demanded fleets to gather and strike before the humans could advance. Others begged for immediate surrender to avoid destruction. The chamber buzzed with panic, and every flick of a tail, every twitch of an antenna, betrayed how deep that fear ran. One elder stood and slammed his staff on the floor. His voice echoed, "Do not understand. These are not invaders we can reason with. These are Deathworlders. Their ships are forged in gravity wells, tested in storms that break planets. One human warship is not just a threat. It is history repeating itself." The hall fell into uneasy silence. The younger counselors exchanged nervous glances. Many had never lived through the stories of past. Wars, to them, humans were only rumors whispered in military academies. Yet now the rumor had shape, metal, and direction. Meanwhile, across the civilian worlds, panic spread like wildfire. In the trade stations, merchants closed their stalls and fled. Cargo ships cut their docking cables in haste. Abandoning goods worth fortunes, colonists sealed themselves inside underground shelters, praying the warship would pass without noticing their worlds. Parents told children to stay quiet, as if silence might hide them from the eyes of the humans. The fleets of the sector scrambled. Commanders barked orders. Ships powered weapons and raised shields. But even the bravest captain felt the truth. They were arming themselves against a legend. In the icy world of Frassel, Admiral Rock stood inside the war chamber, staring at the star map. Red markers showed his fleet of 200 warships. Their formation was sharp, precise, but next to the blinking signal of the human vessel, they looked like insects circling a predator. 200 ships, he muttered, and still not enough. His second-in-command shifted uneasily. "Admiral, should we attack before it grows closer?" Rock shook his head slowly. His crest feathers drooped. "No. If this is truly a human warship, attacking will only show them how weak we are. They will crush us to prove a point." In another system, a religious order gathered in their temple. They fell to their knees, chanting prayers to their gods. To them, the arrival of the human warship was not war, it was prophecy. The return of the destroyers, the bringers of balance through fire, they believed the galaxy's sins had summoned the humans back. But in hidden rooms, far away from public eyes, another group gathered, the war profiteers. They licked their lips and whispered about selling secrets, about offering slaves, resources, or technology to the humans in exchange for survival. Fear twisted into greed, and even in terror, some found ways to bargain. The panic was not only about the warship's power, it was about the unknown. Why was it here? Why this sector? Was it alone? Or was an entire fleet waiting just beyond the stars? Every question created more fear. Back on Varanine, young Officer Kelm watched the cum feeds as alien leaders argued. He felt sick. The warship still drifted closer on his screen, but it had not fired a single shot. Its silence was the worst weapon. The crew whispered to each other in the dark. Why don't they speak? Are they watching us? Are they judging? Kelm thought of something his grandfather once told him, a story that many dismissed as old lies. His grandfather had fought in a war long ago. He claimed that a single human fleet ended it in less than a month. The humans never shouted, never boasted. They simply arrived, fought like storms, and left the galaxy trembling. Now, staring at the cold signal of the warship, Kelm realized those were not lies. They were warnings across the stars. Decisions were made in fear. Fleets repositioned, colonies darkened their lights, traders abandoned routes. The entire sector seemed to hold its breath, waiting for what the human ship would do next. But no one could hide the truth. The warship had entered, and nothing could undo that step. It was not a matter of if something would happen. It was only a matter of when, And the galaxy understood one thing very clearly. When humans arrive, history changes, asterisk. First contact attempt, the human warship drifted deeper into the sector. Silent as stone, it did not fire. It did not answer hails. It simply moved forward with the calm weight of a storm. To the aliens watching, this silence was unbearable. On the command deck of Vera 9, officers stared at their screens. Blinking lights showed repeated hail attempts. Dozens of channels opened and closed, each one rejected. "Try again," Commander Salvik ordered. His voice was low, but his tail flicked. Sharply, betraying his nerves, Kelm adjusted the controls. His hands trembling, he activated the primary channel, broadcasting in every known trade language. "This is the Vera 9 outpost of the Galactic sector. Identify yourself. We request your purpose of entry." Silence, only the endless hum of the scanners replied. Minutes dragged by. Some of the younger officers whispered to each other. One hissed, "Maybe their translators don't work." "Maybe they don't want peace," another muttered. "Or maybe they don't think we're worth answering." Hours later, the Council ordered a fleet to attempt contact. Admiral Rock's warships formed a perimeter around the human vessel. Their engines burned bright, surrounding the dark giant like sparks around a mountain. Rock stood at the front of his flagship, his eyes fixed on the massive shape ahead. "Transmit in their own tongue," he ordered. His voice was steady, but his hands gripped the railing tightly. The comm officer swallowed hard and began speaking in old human trade speech, rusty but clear. "Attention, human vessel. You are entering restricted space. Identify yourself or face defensive action." Again silence. The human warship gave no sign that it had even heard. It drifted forward, slow and steady. The alien fleet shifted nervously, weapons charged but held back. Then, for the first time, the human ship moved with purpose. Its hull shifted, lights ignited along its length. Hundreds of faint glows spread across the black metal like eyes opening, defensive shields up. Rock barked, his fleet obeyed, warships locked into combat formation. But no attack came. Instead, the human warship released something. From the sides of its hull, dark objects drifted free. At first, the aliens thought they were mines. Panic spread as alarms screamed, but as scanners focused, the truth was worse. They were drones, hundreds of them, small, fast, and built like predators. Their forms gleamed with sharp edges and strange weapons. They spread out in every direction, scanning every ship, every station, every planet within reach. "They're mapping us," whispered the comm officer. "They're learning everything." Rock's hands shook. He thought about giving the order to fire, but he hesitated. A single wrong move, and this fleet could vanish in seconds. He clenched his teeth and remained silent. Across the sector, panic grew. Civilian ships shut down their engines and drifted powerless, hoping to avoid notice. Colonies cut transmissions, praying the drones would pass them by. But the drones did not attack. They simply observed, scanned, recorded, and returned to the massive warship. And still, the human ship said nothing. On Vera 9, young Kelm leaned back in his chair. His throat was dry. "They didn't answer us," he whispered. "They don't want to talk." Commander Salvik's eyes narrowed. "No," he said slowly. "It is worse than that. They don't need to talk." The silence was a message louder than any weapon. Humans had entered the sector, and they had nothing to prove. Admiral Rock reported his findings to the Council. His voice was tight with frustration. "They ignore us. They drift as if we are insects. They release machines that see everything. We try to hide, and still they say nothing. This is not diplomacy. It is judgment." The Council argued bitterly. Some demanded an attack. Others cried that such action would doom them all. In the shadows, whispers grew louder. If one warship can do this, how many more are waiting? What if this is not an army? What if this is only a messenger? In the far corners of the galaxy, Ordinary people sat in fear, watching the silent shape crawl across their skies. Every child, every elder, every traitor knew the same truth. The humans stayed silent. It meant they were deciding, and when humans decided, the galaxy always remembered. Asterisk the Council divides. The Galactic High Council gathered in the Great Dome of Drelvos. Its walls curved with silver light, filled with the voices of 100 species. Normally, their debates lasted hours, calm and controlled. But now the chamber. Shook with panic, the human warship had ignored every hail. It had released drones, scanned fleets and colonies, and then withdrawn its machines without a single word. To some, this silence was mercy. To others, it was the sound of doom, Counselor. Vaynor, a scaled reptilian with scarred jaws, raised his claw and hissed, "We must strike first. If we allow them to move deeper, they will take the sector piece by piece. Better to die fighting than to wait for judgment." His words drew roars of agreement from the warrior clans seated nearby, but across the chamber, softer voices rose. In protest, "No," cried Counselor Leora, a pale, long-limbed scholar. "To strike is suicide. One ship, yes, but one ship of theirs equals 1,000 of ours. History shows this. You speak of courage, but I call it madness." The chamber split into two storms. One side demanded war, the other begged for surrender or diplomacy. Fists slammed tables, tails lashed, wings beat the air, the noise grew so heavy it drowned the very translators. At the center of it all sat High Speaker Terrace, his horns curved high, his face still as stone. He watched the storm without blinking. When he finally stood, the hall fell into silence. "Counselors," he said, his voice deep, "we face not an enemy. Not yet. We face a question. The humans have entered our sector. They have shown us their size, their silence, their power. Now we must decide. Are they here as conquerors or as judges?" His words sparked whispers through the crowd. Judges. The word struck deep. Some remembered the archives, old records that spoke of human fleets arriving at corrupt empires. They never stayed long. They never claimed worlds. They simply destroyed. Tyrants, shattered slavers, and left. For some, that history was comfort. For others, it was terror. In the shadows of the chamber, a counselor activated a hidden recorder. The voice that played was cracked with age. One human warship destroyed the tyrannic dominion. 10,000 ships fell in 3 weeks. The humans did not boast. They did not claim. They erased, and when they left, no one dared to rebuild. The recording ended. The silence that followed was heavier than stone. Counselor Vaynor slammed his fist again. "You hear this, and still you beg for peace? They are destroyers, not allies. If they come as judges, then we are already guilty. We must strike while we can." Leora rose, trembling. "And if we strike, we prove our guilt. We confirm their judgment. No, the only path is surrender. Perhaps mercy will follow." The chamber boiled with fury. 2 sides, 2 answers, both filled with fear. Back on Vera 9, Keln watched the live stream of the council session. His stomach churned. They argued as if words could stop the massive shape that still crept deeper into the stars. He whispered to Solvik, "They don't understand, do they? The humans don't need our decisions." Solvik's eyes narrowed. "No," he said. "They already made theirs." At that moment, the warship shifted. For the first time since entering the sector, it changed direction. Its hull rotated slowly, like a predator turning its gaze. Across every scanner, the signal tilted, pointing toward the council world itself. Panic erupted. Fleets scrambled. Civilian worlds screamed. The council chamber fell into chaos as screens showed the human warship, now drifting steadily toward Drelvos. "They're coming here," shouted one counselor. "Not for war," muttered another, pale with fear. "For judgment." In the skies above, alien fleets formed walls of ships, their weapons charged, but none dared to fire first. The humans had not spoken a single word, and yet, with only silence, they had split the galaxy in two. Asterisk. The display of power the human warship entered the heart of the sector like a shadow swallowing the stars. It drifted past fleets that scrambled to surround it, but it did not slow. It did not fear. The massive vessel pressed forward, silent as death. Above the council world of Drelvos, thousands of alien ships hung ready. Their weapons glowed, shields hummed, but every captain knew the truth if the humans wished to strike. No defense would matter. On the surface below, billions of citizens looked up. The skies darkened as the warship passed overhead. It was so large it blotted out the light of two suns. Its hull stretched from horizon to horizon. Its surface shone. With black metal that absorbed light instead of reflecting it, it looked less like a ship and more like a continent floating in space. In the council hall, leaders screamed. Some demanded an immediate strike. Others begged to kneel. The high speaker raised his hand, trembling. "Wait," he whispered. "Look." The human warship moved again. Its vast hull opened along the center line. For the first time, the galaxy saw what lay within. A hangar the size of a moon yawned open. Inside were rows upon rows of smaller craft, fighters, shuttles, dropships, tens of thousands. They hung in silence, but their sheer number sent terror into every heart. They could invade 10 worlds. "At once," muttered Counselor Leora, "with one ship," but it did not launch the swarm. Instead, new shapes emerged. Hundreds of spheres drifted free from the warship. They pulsed with blue light and spread across the skies. Scanners screamed as they detected their purpose. They were not weapons, they were projectors. Beams of light cut through space, painting the skies of every world in the sector. On every screen, every window, every reflective surface, the same vision appeared. The human warship showed its power without firing a shot. It projected maps. It showed alien fleets, colonies, secret stations all marked and labeled. The humans had mapped the entire sector. In less than a day, every hidden base, every dark fleet, every smuggler den all revealed for all to see. Gasps filled the council hall. Leaders stared in horror as their secrets appeared above them. "They know everything," whispered Vayner, his defiance fading. "Every fleet, every weapon, every sin." Then the projectors shifted again. The maps vanished, replaced now with images that made the chamber fall silent. The vision showed alien ships attacking weaker worlds, colonies burned, prisoners chained, planets stripped for resources. Every cruelty committed by the sector's powers was laid bare, recorded, and broadcast for all to witness. Children cried. Parents covered their faces. Leaders slumped in shame. The warship was not just displaying power, it was displaying judgment. On Vera 9, young Kelm covered his mouth. His eyes widened as he recognized a scene, his own cousin's colony, destroyed years ago by pirates under council protection. It had been called an accident, but here it was, clear and undeniable. They knew, he whispered. The humans knew all along. The projectors pulsed one final time, and then went dark. The spheres drifted back toward the warship, which sealed its great hangar once again. The silence that followed was more crushing. And the images themselves, on every world, billions whispered the same question. Why show us this? Why now? In the council hall, chaos erupted again. Some leaders wailed, begging for mercy. Others snarled that the humans were playing games. But all knew one thing the warship had spoken without words. Admiral Rock's fleet remained frozen in space. The admiral's voice was hoarse as he finally spoke. "They didn't fire," he said. "They didn't need to. They have already won." The high speaker lowered his head. His voice was quiet, almost broken. "The humans are not here to fight." "Yes," he said. "They are here to remind us." But of what? No one yet knew. The human warship hovered above Drelvos, silent, patient, watching, It had displayed its strength. It had exposed their sins. Now the galaxy waited, hearts pounding, for what would come next. Because if this was only a warning, what would their judgment look like? Humanity speaks once. The human warship hung above Drelvos like a silent mountain. Days had passed since it had entered the sector, and still it had not fired, not invaded, not demanded. But the silence was worse than any attack. The people of the sector could not sleep. Billions stared at their skies, waiting for the shadow to move. Some prayed, some cursed, some whispered that the end of their age had come. In the council hall, leaders argued without end. Some still called for war, desperate to strike before the humans acted. Others wept, saying resistance was already pointless. A chamber had become a cage of fear. Then it happened. On every world, in every ship, in every outpost, screens flickered, lights dimmed, power cut, and for the first time since its arrival, the human warship spoke. The voice was not loud. It was calm, steady, heavy with control. It carried in every language, translated perfectly into every tongue. This sector broke the treaty, the voice said. The words echoed through the galaxy like thunder. Every leader froze. Every citizen fell silent. The voice continued, measured and cold. You enslaved the weak. You burned unarmed colonies. You fed greed with blood. You thought no one was watching. Images filled the skies, again chains around children. Cities turned to ash, starving refugees, fleets firing on the defenseless. The sector's sins laid bare, undeniable. Your crimes reached us, the voice said, and now judgment has come. The words fell like blades on Vera 9. Kelm clutched his chair. His throat tightened as if the voice had spoken directly to him. He glanced at Commander Solvik. The veteran's face was pale, his tail still. They knew everything, Solvik whispered. Everything we hid. Across the stars, panic erupted. On some worlds, leaders burned documents and destroyed evidence. Others fell to their knees in surrender. Citizens rioted, demanding their rulers answer for the crimes. In the war chamber of Admiral Rock, the old soldier bowed his head. His second-in-command trembled. What do we do? She asked. Rock's voice was heavy. We do nothing. We wait. If they wanted us gone, we would already be dust. Back in the council hall, chaos shook the dome. Counselor Vayner shouted, They accuse us. Lies. Human tricks. We must resist. But his words felt weak. His scales dulled. His voice cracked. Counselor Leora rose, tears in her eyes. No, this is not trickery. This is truth. We all knew, and we all looked away. The High Speaker leaned forward. His hands shook as he gripped the table. Humans do not speak without purpose, he whispered. If they spoke once, then we must listen, because they may not speak twice. At that moment, the human warship's voice returned. Just 3 words this time. You were warned, then. Silence. The ship's lights dimmed. Its drones returned to their bays. No further message came. But those words shattered the sector more than weapons ever could on a mining world. Workers dropped their tools, refusing to serve their masters. On a trade station, smugglers surrendered themselves. On a colony once stripped bare, citizens raised banners of rebellion. Everywhere, fear and guilt turned to fire. The council hall dissolved into chaos again. Some shouted that the humans would purge them all. Others claimed this was mercy, a chance to repent. But one truth united them. Humanity had spoken once, and the galaxy would never forget those words. On Vera 9, young Keln stared at the screen long after it went dark. He whispered softly, If this is their warning, what will their punishment be? The sector falls silent. The human warship lingered above Drelvos, silent again. Its 3 words still echoed across the stars. You were warned. No more images, no more speeches, no more movement. Just silence, But that silence broke the sector. More than fire ever could. On the surface of Drelvos, riots spread. Citizens flooded the streets. Their voices rose in anger, not against the humans, but against their own rulers. They shouted the crimes they had just seen in the sky. They demanded justice, demanded answers, demanded change. In the council hall, the once proud leaders sat pale and broken. Vaynor slumped in his chair, the strength drained from his scales. Leora knelt on the floor, trembling but calm. The high speaker's horns drooped low. His voice shook when he finally spoke. The humans will not strike us. We are already striking ourselves. Above, fleets that had once bristled with weapons now powered them down. Captains gave quiet orders, not to fire, not to fight, but to stand aside. Whole armadas surrendered without a battle. Some ships even turned their guns on their own commanders, refusing to obey orders that stank of corruption. On distant colonies, flags were lowered. Governments dissolved overnight. Leaders, who had ruled with cruelty, found themselves dragged into the streets by their own people. And all the while, the human warship hovered, unmoving, unblinking, watching. It had not come to conquer. It had come to expose. On Vera 9, young Keln watched the reports flood in. His console blinked with transmissions from across the sector. Surrender messages, calls for help, cries of rebellion. He turned to Commander Solvik. "What do we do now?" Keln asked, his voice shaking. Solvik's eyes stayed fixed on the great shadow drifting in the stars. His voice was low, steady. "We survive," he said. "We learn, we change. Because the humans won't give us another warning." The warship began to move again. Slowly, silently, it drifted away from Drelvos. Its engines flared with dull light. Its drones vanished back into its hull. The massive hangar doors sealed shut. The galaxy held its breath as the warship turned toward the black void beyond the sector. And then, as silently as it had arrived, the human warship left. For days, no one spoke. Across the stars, worlds lay quiet. People moved carefully, as if afraid the humans could still hear their every word. Fleets stayed docked. Colonies stayed dim. Trade routes went empty. A hush spread across the sector. They called it the Silent Week, a time when the galaxy itself seemed frozen, too frightened to return to old ways, too ashamed to speak of their crimes. But after the silence came change. On the mining world of Kravel, slaves were freed. Their masters fled into the night, never to return. On the smuggler station of Tyrus, the gangs disbanded, fearing human. Eyes would return if they spilled more blood. On the agricultural colonies, farmers formed councils of their own, refusing to send tribute to corrupt rulers. The galaxy had not been conquered. It had been judged, and judgment was enough. In the council hall, High Speaker Terrace addressed the chamber. His voice cracked, but his words carried weight. We were given a chance, not mercy, not friendship a chance. The humans showed us what we had become. Now we must decide what we will be. Some counselors wept, some bowed their heads. None dared to defy. Back on Vera 9, Keln stood on the observation deck, staring at the empty stars where the warship had disappeared. His hands shook, but his heart beat steady. They didn't destroy us, he whispered. They didn't need to. Beside him, Solvik folded his arms, his eyes hard. One warship changed everything, he said. One shadow, one voice, one warning. That is the power of humanity. And across the galaxy, that truth spread like fire. The aliens had laughed at human myths. They had doubted the old stories. They had believed humanity was gone, forgotten, unworthy of fear. But now they knew one human warship was enough too. End an era, and in the silence it left behind, the galaxy trembled, knowing this truth. If humanity returned again, it would not be with a warning asterisk.